What's going on, guys? It's Heath Legend here, coming at you with another video. The Nemesis is now here. Of course, being my absolute favourite thick boy in all of fiction. And there's something I really wish to speak about. It's because I know that I speak for many others. The fact that the introduction of Nemesis has been very, very disappointing, especially given the fact that the license of Resident Evil is so big. You know, the game state itself, whether it be the glitches, the netcode and lag issues, hackers, broken maps, looking at you, RPD, the new map that we don't get to play, or, you know, just the overall lackluster Nemesis introduction really in terms of its kit. Patch 5.00 has been an absolute mess. So messy in fact that fans are actually beginning to boycott the game, believe it or not, in protest until the game code is fixed. But let's talk about Nemesis in particular. Sure, many DBD fans are very, very happy with the Nemesis, and I'll concede that point. Some are. However, what I've noticed in the Resident Evil fans in particular, whether that be myself, my own friendship group, or chatting to people online, a number of actual Resident Evil fans who are probably more so RE fans than DBD have, you know, been complaining quite substantially about the Nemesis. From my point of view and from a few of my friends, he really does feel half done, especially in terms of his kit. When you look at Nemesis in comparison to Pyramid Head, he just doesn't feel like he's the Nemesis. It doesn't feel like his kit's all there. It doesn't feel as though they implemented him the way they wish to have implemented him had they had the time. Effectively, he feels a bit rushed. His kit feels half done, as I said. But really, the fact that you don't feel like the Nemesis is boring. He's really boring. Sure, you can have some good games with him, but in general, his kit is really boring. And the Nemesis should never ever be boring. Ever. So in this video, I'm going to aim to fix the Nemesis, make him more iconic, and make him more fun. And for the record, every proposed change that I, of course, propose, they are going to be fully biased, but I do hope that someone of behaviour does see this video and potentially has the discussion in order to implement some or all of these changes. So let's begin. Firstly, Nemesis needs to say stars more. It's really simple one, this is. You know, in terms of the day-to-day, you know, game-by-game basis, I'm pretty sure that Nemesis only says stars when he's pulling Jill from a locker. What? What? What the fuck? Nemesis only says stars when he pulls Jill from a locker. What? What is that? Bruh, in the games, this guy says stars all the time. It's pretty much his most iconic thing that he does. You know, I was genuinely shocked when I was playing as Nemesis. He doesn't even say stars when he picks up a downed Jill. I picked up a downed Jill for the first time when he came out. I was like, yeah, he's gonna say stars. He didn't say stars. He didn't say anything. He probably just growled a little bit. It sucks because Trickster talks crap all the time. He starts talking in Korean, he starts laughing, pretty sure he starts humming randomly as well. Why can't Nemesis say stars? Behaviour really needs to get this sorted, because without that, you really don't feel like him. Let's continue. One that really irked me was Nemesis' palette stun animation. Now, online before Nemesis was even announced, people were saying it's going to look really stupid, Nemesis, if he ever comes to DBD being stunned by a palette, acting like he's scared of a palette, holding his eyes up. You know, he's supposed to be this killer monster, he's supposed to be this absolute killer of a bioweapon that doesn't care about anything. And I agree. I'm sorry, but why did they code the Nemesis to flinch to a palette like a punk? Nemesis ain't no punk. Nemesis would never flinch. Nemesis wouldn't even flinch to bullets, as seen in the trailer before the game starts. It's really, really easily amended, this is. Instead, when a survivor pallet stuns Nemesis, he should just get pissed off at them and roar or scream stars. The Nemesis shouldn't flinch to a pallet. You easily just implement an animation where he just gets pissed off, where he just randomly starts shouting or whatever. You know, and it's something that would be easily implemented if they just created the animations. And again, it would also go a long way into making you feel like the Nemesis when you're playing, as opposed to just some generic tentacle monster. This next one might be a bit controversial, but I do think it's a small QOL change, small quality of life change, which would potentially help a lot more newer players. But that would be boosting tentacle mutation rate on a downed hook survivor if you didn't down them with the tentacle. Some may say this is imbalanced. I personally don't see how, but if it was, I would concede that point and say, right, we've implemented it, we've tried it, it does seem a little bit unbalanced. From a lore point of view, and even from a gameplay perspective as well, it makes zero sense that Nemesis can't infect and receive a mutation from a downed survivor. You know, even if you balanced it in the sense of you only get a third of the mutation rate that you would if you hit them with the tentacle whilst they were standing, and you can give that a lore explanation of the fact that if they're downed or on the hook, they're not scared, which is what the entity wants. Let's say the T-virus is mutated by the entity or whatnot, who knows. The fact that the survivor has been downed, it means you aren't really getting an unfair advantage from it, especially if it mutates at a slower rate again to balance it. At the end of the day, the Nemesis would do that if they were downed and he hadn't done it before. You know, if it is unbalanced, as I said, I'd like to try it, but I would concede if it was imbalanced and then reverse that change. It genuinely makes no sense. I think you could implement that. The person playing the Nemesis would have a bit more fun, because he is a difficult killer to play, especially with the state of the game at the moment, and especially on console, because, you know, aiming with an analog stick isn't really that great. So that's a change, quality of life change, I do believe would be welcome, I'd like to think, within the community. Next one is a small quality of life change that I think would enable people to play the Nemesis more comfortably and learn how to use them a bit better, and that is increasing the tentacle hitbox width, whether that's base kit or with add-ons, because the tentacle hitbox in general is minuscule. It's so small the amount of times you can try and hit and you think you'll get it, and then for some reason it just doesn't register as a hit. You know, sure, it does, the tentacle does have a slight linger effect, and if you see streamers that are really good with him, you'll be able to see that linger effect and they play around it, and you know, with practice you will get better. However, there are multiple reasons why it can be difficult to get good at using the tentacle of the Nemesis. Yeah, especially on console, as I said. As I already mentioned, the netcode and memory usage when using the Nemesis in general is absolutely atrocious. So bad, it's like the coders are amateur coders. It's like they don't know how to make games properly. Because if you've played the Nemesis, especially on console, you'll see that the frame rate, irrelevant what console you're on, can at times drop to 0. Now, not to mention the fact that the camera sensitivity is universal across all killers. It's not like you can change the sensitivity on a per killer basis. So, say for instance Trapper, who doesn't need great sensitivity, you want it higher simply because you'll be able to turn and juke and hit people quicker, whereas someone that aims like Deathslinger, Nemesis, Huntress, you may need a different sensitivity. The Nemesis needs an add-on where it slightly increases the tentacle hitbox width, even if it was to lessen the mutation rate by something like 1/10, in order to balance that out, because you've got a higher rate of hitting, so the mutation rate should be a bit slower. I understand that. It would make him more fun and less punishing to learn and use, because right now, especially with the state of the game, which could get fixed, but this is behaviour we're talking about, it will make him a lot easier to learn how to use. And once you learn where the tentacle will strike on a game-to-game basis, obviously you can drop the add-on. It would be similar to other killers where you increase Doctor's shock therapy, or you change it into a circle or whatever. It's just more flexibility when it comes to your power, when it comes to learning your power, when it comes to seeing what it affects the survivors like. So I would like to see that change too. Next change I would implement is an add-on that shows where and what terrain the tentacle can actually be used over, similar to one of the Doctor's add-ons where it shows where his shock therapy goes. This will show where your tentacle will go before you use it whilst you're aiming. If you watch any streamer like Dowsy or Otz for instance, you'll see that even they struggle to categorically know where the Nemesis can use his tentacle over terrain. There's a table in the game, the saw map, and the bottom floor on the right hand side of the map, where you'd think that Nemesis's tentacle will be able to go over the table. It's not very wide, but the tentacle doesn't go over it. You can't hit a survivor over that table. Dowsy was streaming with Nemesis, and he thought he would be able to hit it, and he couldn't. It just wouldn't hit over. Similar to Haddonfield as well, there are some fences where you need the best aim possible to be able to hit over the picket fences. I know because I've tried it. I know because it took me forever to be able to actually register a hit, despite the fact on my screen it was hitting the survivor every time. So an add-on like that would really help, especially when it comes to, again, learning the Nemesis. Again, you know, people that are not necessarily Nemesis mains but want to give them a try. And here we go, here's the most controversial one. Nemesis needs a weapon power up, man. I'm sorry, he does. They reworked Doctor to basically be a different character, and they can do the same with Nemesis even though he's new. Sure, Nemesis isn't just his rocket launcher or flamethrower. However, they are part of his iconography. The fact that they couldn't even at least implement the flamethrower is to me pretty weird. You know, I think he really does need this as a power-up, to be fair. If you look at my other video, I said where his weapon power-up needs to be earned through consistent gameplay, through consistent good gameplay and hooks. So I said 8 hooks. It means that, the gameplay is pretty balanced or you're winning. So it basically just changes the gameplay because you're playing well. And I do get it. People are concerned about the balance of a weapon. So with the launcher, if the rocket launcher is a bit too overpowered, then fine, don't implement it. But the flamethrower is something that could easily be balanced because it's such a short range weapon anyway. Especially if you did it at a shorter range than, let's say, the tentacle at tier 3, or at least a Michael Myers lunge. It's a flamethrower, it's not going to go very far. At least you can balance it that way. It makes the gameplay fun. It rewards good gameplay, and to be fair, with a flamethrower, survivors are going to get that feeling of being scared and intimidated in DBD again that they've all been deconditioned to. Now it's just a game to them, it's not a horror game to them anymore. So I think implementing the flamethrower as a power-up rewarding good gameplay, it's something that would make him more fun to play against, and more importantly, iconic. Nothing Nemesis has is iconic apart from the tentacle. I'm not gonna lie, that's not really iconic in and of itself. Finally, the T-Virus. When I first started playing Nemesis, I was actually really shocked, especially with what I pitched in my last video, when it came to the Nemesis T-Virus before he was even announced. From where I sit, as a Nemesis player, the T-Virus infection basically does nothing other than making survivors cough and covering them in a little bit of blue goo.
1,800 atoms for fucking blue? You want me to spend $18 for fucking blue? What is this, Evolve? No! Bethesda, no!
Nearly making the vaccine pointless. I would imagine that more advanced players don't even use the vaccine because with Killer Instinct it reveals their location to him. Yeah, again, not to plug my own video, but they really could have took a risk in gameplay when it comes to the T-Virus infection, especially at a high rate, so let's say 70% infection rate, and it really could have been done for good use. It could have been really fun, where it screws with survivors, whether that be the regression of gens like I pitched in my last Nemesis video, reversing the controls every now and then for a survivor so they can't run and they can't loop as effectively as they would do, so they will go and get the vaccine in order to play more optimally again. Reducing survivor FOV, so reducing their FOV by a third or a half, making it more difficult for them to see the terrain. Making survivors too weak to use pallets, so instead of just being able to run to an infinite or run to a god pallet, they're too weak because the T-Virus is infecting them. You can even balance all of these effects by using the in-law of Resident Evil, where zombies won't attack other T-Virus infected zombies or monsters or tyrants, where if a survivor has got a 70% T-Virus infection, the zombies, they won't attack them, they won't be alerted to them, which will then also screw with Nemesis's map surveillance, because the zombies will no longer chase them, the zombies will no longer raise their arms, showing the Nemesis where a survivor may be. I think that would be a really, really good thing to implement, because at the moment the T-Virus pretty much does nothing. I don't understand why Nemesis gets more powerful through infection. It just doesn't fit his character. Nemesis gets more powerful through being destroyed, through being attacked, through regenerating because he's injured, not because he hits people with its tentacle. It just doesn't make sense. It really just doesn't make sense that they've done the total reverse of what actually happens in the lore. So in closing, let me just say this. In its current form, Nemesis does not feel iconic. I'm one of the biggest Nemesis fanboys on planet Earth and nobody can tell me different. If I knew nothing about Resident Evil, I'm going to be honest, and someone told me his main power being the tentacle, I genuinely would think that you were talking about some generic tentacle / octopus creature. I'm legitimately mean that as well. He just feels like an octopus creature with a tentacle. Doesn't feel like the Nemesis. He hasn't got his weapons. The T-Virus does nothing. He can't dash. He can't grab. He barely says stars. How is that Nemesis? That's not Nemesis. Without all of those things, he's not Nemesis. He's basically Mr. X with a tentacle. That's what he is Mr. X with a tentacle. At present, he genuinely feels gimmicky, especially with the bad / wonky zombie AI. He also feels really punishing to use, and he's really boring. That's the most important thing. He's boring. You don't feel like the Nemesis. I genuinely feel like behaviour rushed him out. In comparison to Pyramid Head, of course, he genuinely feels rushed out. It feels like he's got half the kit they intended to, but because of the 5-year anniversary, because of contracts with Capcom, because of the 25-year anniversary of Resident Evil, feels like they rushed him out, and with half the kit that they intended to give him. Literally anything the Nemesis can do, bar the zombies, Pyramid Head can do, but better. Especially because Pyramid Head can literally avoid all hook-based perks. You know, Pyramid Head is more unique, he's got more diverse powers, and more importantly, he's a million times more fun. I really hope that Behaviour see this video, and if you do watch this video, if you like it, do give me a like, comment, and subscribe. Because, you know, being a small YouTuber, it's really, really hard to get noticed. But if you do like this video, genuinely, at Behaviour on Twitter, tell them your dissatisfaction with the new killer. We've waited for a Nemesis/Resident Evil collaboration for literally years. I know the community has, because Resident Evil is pretty much the biggest horror game. So do at this video to Behaviour, to Matthew Koto. I really hope Nemesis gets the love he deserves, and hope you share that. Until next time, take care of yourselves, you absolute legends. Heath Legend is out.